In this video, I'll be showing you how you can get your axle from looking like this to this. These are the products that I'm going to be using in order from left to right. So the POR15 metal prep, the rust preventative paint, and then the top coat, which I already opened before. I started by grinding away as much paint and rust as possible. I'll link the cleaning discs that I used down below. After I grinded the axles down to bare metal, it was time to move them outside. This forklift has definitely been a lifesaver around the garage. It makes it so easy to move everything around. As you can see here behind the diff, there's still paint residue as I couldn't reach this with the grinder. So I'm using this on top of that, this strip gel from Frost. It's great. You can see it just makes the paint bubble, and then I can just hose it off with the pressure washer. Here I'm starting to degrease the axle. This is very important because if you don't do this, the products just won't adhere well to it. I'm using an automotive degreaser and then just use a toothbrush to get in all the spots. I then made sure that I hosed it down really well. It's now completely degreased, so I'll let it dry. I will now be using a metal prep. This will etch the metal and remove any rust before I paint it. I put like 2 microfiber towels inside and then this over that so that nothing reaches all the spinning parts. This is what I'll be using to prep the metal. This is what it looks like before I'm going to be applying the metal prep. I'm really curious to see what it does. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm also a bit anxious. I hope I do it correctly. But yeah, this is what it looks like right now. Here I'm applying the metal prep. I've poured it into a spray bottle. This just makes it way easier to apply. I've applied the metal prep and it needs to sit for 20 minutes and I need to keep it wet in between. So if I see that it's drying, I just spray some more on it. But yeah, so far it's going well. I turned it upside down and then I saw oil started leaking out. But it didn't touch anything of the axle. It's just coming out of the diff essentially. So I'll just leave it in this position until it has drained and until the metal prep is done, so it won't interfere. The metal prep sat for about 20 minutes, so that means I'm going to rinse it off right now. Here I'm just rinsing off the metal prep. After I've done that, I'll let the axle air dry. This is what the axle looks like after rinsing off the metal prep. I noticed there was quite a bit of white residue on it. See it even better here. White residue is just zinc phosphate and you can very easily brush it away. I very likely didn't rinse the axle off well enough and that's why the white layer formed. This is the other axle that I rinsed thoroughly. Here you can see what it's supposed to look like when you do it properly. I learned from my mistake. After removing the zinc residue, it was time to apply the first layer of rust preventative paint. It's better to do multiple thin layers than just one thick layer. The result will be nicer. I ended up doing 2 layers. This is also what POR15 recommends. I'm a complete beginner when it comes to this stuff. I've never painted anything on a car in my life, but I do find this stuff really easy to work with and very beginner friendly. First layer is on. It's now time for a second layer of coating. How you can see if it's ready for another layer is you put your finger here and then you drag it across the surface. It should feel slightly tacky, but there should be no residue left. And there isn't, this is old paint, so. I have applied the base layer of paint on here, so now it's ready for top coat. But before I'm gonna put the top coat on, I'm gonna lightly sand it with 320 grit. It's probably overkill, but I'd like a really smooth finish. I'm a tad perfectionistic. I then lightly sanded down the axle. This will remove any impurities or unevenness and it will also make the top coat adhere better. I'm done sanding, now the top coat can be applied. This is the product that I'm going to be using, POR15 top coat chassis black. I'll be painting it over the rust preventative coating for optimal protection. I have my paint in here and a brush. Let's get started. I really hope it's gonna turn out nice. So the idea is for the axle that large parts are going to be black and then it will have some like red accents, like these are going to be red, and then the things that are around the CV boots are going to be red, and I think that's gonna look quite nice all together. Well, I hope it's gonna look nice. Spent a lot of effort on it. I'll probably use 2 layers as a top coat just so I get a nicer finish. Even though you don't really see it, I still want it to look somewhat nice. The top coat took me the most time by far. I wanted it to look really nice, so yeah, I was being too perfectionistic. You can see me picking something out of the paint. I believe it was a hair that came out of the brush, so yeah, this took the most time, but I think the result in the end is definitely worth it. I painted the part where the hub connects to the axle red. The reason I painted this red is so that leaks are easier to spot, and I also think it just looks really cool. My truck has a Volvo B30 red block engine, so I wanted the color to match the engine. I used the color Ford Red from POR15, which is a direct match to the Volvo red block red. I spent a couple hours researching this, reading different forums, as it was really difficult to find a color that would match my red block. Here I'm just peeling off the paint on the mating surface. I then started painting the portal housing. I also painted these in that very nice red color. I do recommend you wear a respirator, as the day before I was painting some small parts, I wasn't wearing my mask and I got a very bad headache. These turned out looking great. Now that my rear axle is done, I started on the front axle. I'd like to paint the axle in one go. I made this contraption so I can go all around it. It's solid enough. Here you can see me wiggling it. I then started painting my front axle. This axle looks shorter, but that's because the portal units were removed. You can see them lying on the pallet in the background. With the front axle, I went through exactly the same process as I did with the rear axle. I applied 2 layers of rust preventative paint and then again 2 layers of the top coat. I have applied the first layer of top coat now. I'm gonna let this dry until it feels slightly tacky. Then I'll apply the final layer of the top coat and then I'm finished. And I'm finished painting with everything and my axles will almost look brand new. While the axles were drying, I decided to paint all the smaller stuff that attaches to them, like these stabilizer rods. My truck is going to look almost brand new once I'm finished with it. This is what the rear axle looks like after I gave it its final layer of paint. I was very happy to be finished. How good do these look? I'm so happy with the result. I think they look absolutely amazing, especially with the red details. I think it looks really nice. Also the front axle will have red details. They are over here. I painted all of these red as well. These basically slide in there, which are all in the color Volvo red. You can see the axles, looks pretty cool. So yeah, I'm really excited to start putting these back together and finish my build. I'm now completely finished with painting my axles. I still have to do my chassis, but I haven't decided yet which color it's going to be. I will be moving all this stuff to a different workspace, like I'm moving garages. I'll be moving into a space where only I have access to it, so I don't have to share it anymore. It's smaller than here, but I think it's much nicer. So yeah, I'm excited for that. There we have the portals and the axles and the stabilizer bars. Everything's painted, everything's done, so now it's time to move. Thank you guys for watching and I'll see you on the next one.